I'll give a brief introduction. I just wanted to make sure you're good on your end. Okay, just wanted to make sure you're
I'm
ready.
new, so everybody, I apologize.
No, you're fine, Kathleen. So this is Heidi Muyeso Kunzman, and I'm an Associate Director with the Northeast Regional Center for Rural Development and also an Extension Associate with the Community and Regional Development Program at Cornell University. And on behalf of my colleagues at the Northeast Regional Center, I'm very pleased to welcome you to the fourth webinar in our Highlights series. For those of you who haven't joined us before, the purpose of the series is to increase the visibility of research and activities throughout the Northeast that are designed, research and extension activities that are designed to strengthen rural communities and support community and economic development. And at the center, we're really pleased to be able to help build awareness of these activities and in turn, hopefully, catalyze some collaboration among those of us working in this area, both in the Northeast and from throughout the country. So today, we're delighted to have Dr. Kathleen Liang join us today to talk about her research on community services for recent immigrants in Vermont. And Kathleen is an associate professor in the Department of Community Development and Applied Economics at the University of Vermont, and also the chair of the Northeast Regional Center's recently established Technical Advisory Committee, which we're really pleased to have as they help us shape our programming through the center and ensure that it's really strongly meeting the needs of folks throughout the Northeast. So the work that Kathleen is going to talk about today is some that she conducted a few years ago now. And I think, Kathleen, it was around 2004, 2005, right? And so we know it's a little bit older, but we know that it's a topic of interest to communities in the Northeast and nationally, and we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to learn more about it. So again, we're really pleased, and with that, I'll turn it over to you, Kathleen.
All right, hi again. Again, this is my first time doing webinar, so if I had any errors, so everybody please just feel free and let me know. But anyway, this is something I had done back in 2004, 2005, but it's an ongoing effort. I have worked with many organizations to help local immigration population to establish in Vermont. Just give you a little bit background about myself. If you have any further questions, any interest for any other thing I'm doing, feel free to contact me. My primary research area is in agritourism. I do research and teaching in community and the youth entrepreneurship and the applied economics area. I teach 2 classes each semester, the Introduction to Community Entrepreneurship and the capstone class of strategic planning. Currently, I have 2 large projects with the USDA, and one is to study multifunctional nutrition, and one is to adapt and utilize innovative waste management strategies to reduce groundwater pollution. Lisa is actually a collaborator with the Multifunctional Farm Operation Project.
Oh, great.
Now, how did I start being involved in this process of working with immigration population? It started back in 1996 when I was a research extension economist in Panhandle Research and Extension Center at the University of Vermont, in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. Now, Scottsbluff, Nebraska has only 2 seasons every year, summer and the winter. There was really no spring or fall. And in the summertime, the temperature went up to 107, 110 degrees constantly, and it was a dry heat. In the wintertime in western Nebraska, it was 70 below. And the change just goes overnight. There was no transition at all. In that environment, I observed and I had worked with many migrant farm labor, primarily in sugar beet production and other manufacturers. They have a really large sugar factory processing the sugar beets. So that's where I learned from them, and I observed their attitude, their lifestyle. They're very hardworking people, and they're in a very happy, satisfactory living. Some people at a local level back in western Nebraska, I remember very vividly that the local people who have lived in western Nebraska for many generations, they really didn't quite understand how to interact with the migrant farm labor from time to time. They usually do not directly contact them, but they were very nice and very helpful to the migrant farm laborers. That was my first experience. After I moved to Vermont, I noticed that Vermont is not a very diverse community in general. We used to be the most rural state in the United States. So far, we have about 621,000 people totally in the state of Vermont. You will see some statistics very soon. Many researchers in Vermont at the University of Vermont had conducted research regarding community characteristics. These are some of the factors or variables I had identified over time from my experience working with people in Vermont, outside Vermont. We use people, place, and the prosperity to look at the community characteristics. Um, I can generally share some findings from other people's research, but I have all the references at the end of the presentation. Feel free to find the information for yourself. Based on the research, when people say who we are in Vermont, the general understanding is we are honest, hardworking, and we are very sincere. What our spirit is, we're family oriented, and we love nature. How we feel most of the time or to each other, we feel safe here, and we appreciate a healthy living style. Finally, how we treat others, we are very loving and supportive. Now, these are through the general survey people had conducted over time. For the resource and the limitation, each community is quite different. Like I said, different places have different issues. We have a lake. Basically, that's what we based on. Our geographic location is very unique here in Vermont. Our land area for living space is relatively small compared with California and other places. Most of our land is a farmland, working farmland, which is actually the biggest asset for the whole state. We rely on tourism. Lisa, again, knows this. Um, Agritourism, general tourism, culinary tourism, all kinds of tourism development rely on our working landscape quite a bit. Prosperity is a different factor that not very many people look at or even think about. It was a part of a community characteristics, but we do have to consider what kind of opportunities we have for our community people, organizations to develop over time. In Vermont, we experience a very significant movement that young people are leaving the state. A lot of young people who grow up in Vermont believe that they really don't have good opportunities for their jobs or education. That we are working very hard to change that mindset because a lot of times people don't realize the best resource or the best opportunities actually in their backyard. Now, if you have any question or comments, feel free to send it through the chat room. So far, is anybody with any question you want to stop for a few minutes here?
And it looks like Jerry's typing. Okay, great, Jerry. Thanks for letting us know. Does anybody else have any questions at this point? And if I just want to emphasize too that although Kathleen will be pausing, if you have any points of clarification that you'd like to have made after she said something, don't hesitate, and we'll take the question at that point as well. So we want to keep everybody in the loop as we're going along. So, and it looks like Lisa's typing, so we'll give it just a minute, Kathleen. Okay, so she's asking what survey is the information that you just shared from, and did you say that you'll show that at the end?
Yes, I will tell you where to find information. It's from the Center for Rural Studies at the University of Vermont. They had conducted periodically how Vermonters feel, what other people look at Vermonters, how they think about it. The best person to get a first-hand survey results will be Dr. Jane Klindinsky in the Department of Community Development and Applied Economics. She's our chairperson here. So Lisa, you can contact Jane because that's what she shared with everybody in one of the workshops she conducted here just a few weeks ago.
And Kathleen, is that something that you do have referenced at the end in your list of references as well, or is it something we can provide later?
Not in the, yeah, we can provide later. I can
Okay.
give that to you and then you can add it to my PowerPoint.
Okay, great. I'll make a list.
Yeah, because it's a series of the reports. I don't have the correct citations yet.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Now let's move on to look at Vermont immigration statistics. These I put the citation and the information source for everybody. These are two reliable sources. They are organizations, nonprofit organizations funded and supported by USDA, Homeland Security, and other organizations like the Census Bureau. So these statistics are the closest everybody can find. And by the way, it's for every state. Like Arkansas, if you want to find Arkansas information, you go onto the website. They have a statewide information available for everybody to use. Vermont immigration population increased quite a bit between 2000 and 2006, and our housing authority also reported the numbers over 2,000 Vermont households as crowded or severely crowded. Now, it didn't say this was due to the immigrant residents only, but they do check with a high correlation. It's possible because the immigrant residents increased over time. Now, as of 2007, the Federation for American Immigration Reform estimated we have about less than 1% of illegal alien. This is based on the Homeland Security information. And then our taxpayers here in state has risen cost in health care, education, incarceration, those kind of things for quite a bit of the budget issue in our state level. Now, these are the statistics that I said I will show you, so you can take a look at based on our population estimation. We have about just 621,000 people in the state. Didn't increase a whole lot in 8 years. But a look at the immigrant stock, that's the population of immigration, and the shared immigration, 11%, and so on and so forth. These information are available for each state, every state. If you go onto the website, you can find it. After I came to Vermont in 1998, I started noticing that we really don't have too many foreigners from my perspective. Now, as far as you can see, just look at my name, all right? I am a foreigner myself. So I am an immigrant myself. That's no doubt at all. And I speak with an accent. I have no problem to admit it. Now, however, I'm from Taiwan originally. I was trying to find some friends or some people from Taiwan or even Asia in Vermont. It took me quite a long time. At that time in 1998, I only encountered about 12 families in Burlington, South Burlington area, and they were from Taiwan, Singapore, China, Hong Kong, the composition of Asian people. And there were only 12 families that I had encountered. Now, over the years, I did notice the changing trend in the immigration population just in the Burlington area. Just to give you a background information about Burlington, Vermont, it is one of the the largest city in Vermont. We only have about 7 to 8 towns or cities in Vermont with a population more than 40,000 people, and most of them live in Chittenden County, which is where Burlington is. Here, I noticed over time that we have more and more African people coming into Vermont. Now, it really shocked me at first because I was thinking, well, who would choose to stay in Vermont? Well, I'm a different kind of person. I have severe allergy problem with my own hometown. I have to stay in the dry, cold weather, unfortunately. So for me, it's basically a health issue. But I was thinking, African people coming to Vermont, it has to be a shocking environment change. So I was very interested in looking at what brought them here. That was the question. And then I was requested by the Vermont Refugee Resettlement Program. I had a few former students working there as volunteers, case managers. They contacted me because they knew I was teaching the business planning class. So they asked me, they said, Dr. Liang, can you help us to develop some business plans for the refugee women who came to Vermont, had nothing to do, or really didn't know what they could do? And so I was introduced to this group of women. They were from the Refugee Resettlement Program, and I noticed that they had excellent sewing skills. They sew by hand, make their own clothes, make their clothes for children, husband, friends. And I was just fascinated by how detailed and how beautiful the African dress and the design were like. That's how I became involved in 2000-2002 time period. And in 2004, I initiated this little research here to look at in more detail how the immigration population changed over time in Vermont. Based on the case managers and the volunteers' information, in general, all the immigrants, including myself, coming to a new country, we have language barriers. We don't know how to communicate with people effectively. I was lucky in Taiwan. English was my second language as required. But you know the difference. When you really come to this country, you see people with different color, different eyes, and different hair. You don't know how to start talking. When I was a grad student at Purdue University back in 1990s, I didn't talk for a long period of time at first because I was terrified. And then some basic technology applications. Some people coming here, like the refugee immigrants, they had never seen microwave or a telephone. They were terrified by those kind of computer electronic stuff. Many immigrants have excellent skills, education background. They had good jobs when they were in their own country. Now, due to the war or any problems they had in their own country, they just couldn't continue that kind of a career path. And unfortunately, we in the U.S., it's a different education system. It requires different professional training, certificate programs. The experience for immigrants just don't match with what they could do in this country, even though they could contribute significantly. Culture shock, how we dress, comparing to how African ladies dress is totally different. Kids, sometimes they were really, really fascinated by different color, different presentation of the styles. The fashion style is quite a shocking experience for many young people here in Vermont. Weather and the climate, again, I mentioned that for immigrants coming to Vermont, especially the Refugee Resettlement Program people, or even farm immigrant labor, they were coming from southern area. Vermont is very different. Today, Heidi and I were talking about our temperature today is 20 degrees here in Burlington, Vermont, and this is a heat wave. Trust me. We had a 2 degrees yesterday during the daytime. At the night, it was like a -5 or something. So 20 degrees for us. I have students wearing shorts and t-shirts right outside right now. I mean, this is a heat wave. But think about people from the tropical area, Africa area, that they could not even comprehend how cold here feels like. They don't have any idea at all. When they came to Vermont for the first time, I remember one of the case managers took me to the airport, and I saw them coming in, from the airport. These ladies and children arrived in about December a couple of years ago, and they were wearing chiffon dress. I mean, there was no winter clothes at all, and they were freezing, and then no shoes. Food and dietary needs have been an issue for a lot of immigrant populations because we don't have the food. Most of them are ingredients um, that they could not find here in this country that they used to cook. Finally, transportation and healthcare issues, that's the big item. They could not move around. They do not know how to drive a car. They do not know how to ride a bicycle. Many of them had never been on a bicycle before. Healthcare is even newer for their perspective. If they get sick, they really rely on the volunteer and the case manager to bring them to the clinic. They don't even know what to do. Now, the major problem for the people I work with here through the refugee resettlement program are due to the reason they came to this country. Many of them were through a lot of war situation, living in persecution. They were tortured. Now, after they came to Vermont, they were just terrified and they didn't know what to do. And they just assumed other people would or might treat them or hurt them the same way like they were hurt before, which was really, really sad. These are the people I had to work with over time. And we're still in the process of figuring out what would be the best way for volunteers to work with them. Fortunately, in Vermont, we have quite a few organizations here. They have been very actively helping immigrants to settle in Vermont. We have a really good organization. I believe it's in every state, too, the Refugee Resettlement Program. Somali Bantu and the Sudan people were the most common people coming into Vermont through the Refugee Resettlement Program. And we also have Association of Africans here in Vermont. Local churches, libraries have been very, very actively involved in helping the refugee or farm labor people getting through the transitions to understand what Vermont is like and how people are like in Vermont. We also have a lot of nonprofit organizations. This is just a rumor. I don't know. You guys can check. People say in Vermont we have the most number of nonprofit organizations per capita. Well, I think it's because we have low population number. That's probably why we have a lot of nonprofit organizations here. Every 2-3 steps down the street, you see a door of some sign there. It's nonprofit. So we have a lot of nonprofit organizations here helping, particularly the immigration population, whether it's a refugee or farm labor people. We provide a lot of services, and a lot of these services are in the language assistance program, education, and just get them to know what this community is like, and also create an integration for local people to participate, to learn from the immigrants too. Now, I'm going to share some specific programs with everybody in a few minutes. But I will pause here for a few minutes if anybody has any questions.
Okay, and Lisa is typing again, Kathleen. Okay.
Yeah, Lisa said, yeah, we have a low pop. Can everybody see this, what Lisa said?
Yes, they can, Kathleen.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. We have been the most rural state for many, many years. I remember 2 years ago I was watching Jeopardy, and this was the last question, the multi-million-dollar question kind of thing. Which state was the most rural state in the U.S.? And this was 2 years ago. I jumped right on. I said it was Vermont, and I was right. But unfortunately, last year Wyoming beat us. we have a. I think Wyoming is now officially based on census the most rural state. But I think they beat us by just a few people, there.
But you guys probably still have the most you guys probably still have the most nonprofits, though, right?
I believe so. If you go to the census information, I was just checking a few minutes ago. I checked Wyoming. We have the most amount of organized nonprofit so far. I checked the 15 states. Okay. So the density is pretty high, which is really good. You know, it's matching with our community characteristics that who we are. We are passionate about making a difference. Period. That's what people think we are here in Vermont. Okay. Very interesting.
I don't think we have any other questions, so I think you can go on, Kathleen.
Okay. Now, these are some good examples of recent, innovative, and successful community programs in Vermont. Like I mentioned before, even though I did this official research project back in 2004, 2005, I have been involved in many organizations working with them continuously to identify new ways and new programs to integrate immigrant population to different Vermont communities and to help local communities to establish the understanding how we could accommodate and work with immigrants. These are just a few examples. The first one is the most recent event. This is that We Share Our World. It's sponsored by the Vermont Refugee Resettlement Program. And this is a series of photos and a documentary, little reports to show how former refugees now living in Vermont. I mentioned the climate issue before. Many people came from the refugee resettlement program, stayed in Vermont for a very short period of time. Usually when they saw the first snowflake in October, that was about the time for them to say goodbye to Vermont. They were just terrified. They had never seen a white thing from the sky. They had no idea what it was. So they were just terrified. And most of them moved to Texas, Arkansas area, which was much warmer than Vermont. And so that we lose a lot of them over time. But these are the people who stayed, and they really made the best of life for themselves and their family members. Refugee Resettlement Program, they have a series of workshops, events like this. You go onto our website, they have a whole list of different things you can identify, or maybe some of you can adapt a similar situation, do the similar things over time. This is a different series that we work with different organizations besides the Refugee Resettlement Program. These movie and the dinner series are sponsored by different nonprofit organizations. This one particularly I'm showing you is going through the Champlain College, which is another college across the street from the University of Vermont. They have like a film documentary major kind of thing, and they work with a lot of nonprofit to share the movie. It's made by local people most of the time, and a conversation over dinner to invite local people and the refugee and other immigrants to share their experiences about their lives in Vermont.
Kathleen, I have a question there. Do you
Yes.
find do you find good levels of participation from local community members and also from the newer immigrant community members?
Yes, these things are very, very popular. Again, going back to our community characteristics, Vermont people are very artsy people. Well, it's not in general form, but we have a lot of artsy people here, and we love to look at local films, the movies, the dinner series, to participate in the dialogue about what's going on in our community. The first one I remember, it was 3 years ago, organized by one of my former students. She is still with the Refugee Resettlement Program. And the first time she organized it as a fundraising opportunity, um, she sold over 500 tickets.
Wow.
I remember correctly. Yep. And the tickets were sold to local people. And it was a really, really popular event ever since that time. They continuously doing it. Sometimes they do it more often, like once a month. And this time, I think this is the first one they did in this year. In 2008, this was the first one, that the example I showed you. But they do it as an annual event, and they sell tickets for fundraising, and the money goes into the investment. If they want to start a little business venture, something like that, if they want to use the money to buy books for kids' education functions, that's how they use the money for. Yeah, it's very, very popular. Yeah. Lisa probably knows a few in the southern Vermont area, Brattleboro, Rutland area. I think they did one not too long ago. Yeah. Now we have a very unique organization called Visiting Nurse Association. Now I'm not sure. I don't have the knowledge to say if this is a national or regional or state level organization. Maybe um, other people can identify it for me. I know this one in Vermont for sure. It's not too far away from UVM down street here. Visiting Nurse Association, they provide a lot of interaction opportunities for local residents to interact with new immigrants. They have a special program called the Family Room Program. And the flyer I have here to show you tells you more details about the family room, the function, and how immigrants participate. It's actually a really unique opportunity for women to get together. Refugee women, they get together every 2-3 days, and then they sit in the family room to sew together. Some women, um, as a refugee, they don't know how to sew. Some women do, but they had never used a sewing machine before. They sew by hand using very, very traditional African approach. But in the family room, they have volunteers, they have trainers to teach these women how to sew using sewing machines. Now, when I was there constantly still, trust me, these sewing machines are not like the Singer 2005 automatic robotic machine, okay? These are very, very old sewing machines donated by people from community just to help these women to have a skill for themselves. Remember I told you somebody asked me to develop a business plan for these women? That's where that plan was adapted. That's where the idea came from, because the women were sewing a lot. Once they realized, oh my gosh, this is much faster by hand. So they just sew and they sew. They do all kinds of stuff, beautiful sewing pattern, crochet, you name it, they could make it. But then what are they going to do with it? They have the problem. So the volunteer approached me saying, Kathleen, could you help us to develop a little bit of business plan to sell these stuff? Now, we did develop a business plan for these refugee ladies. However, we couldn't use it. Now, why? Because nobody had the knowledge or the skills to translate the contents of business plan to the ladies. They have no idea what this plane was about, and due to the language barrier and the concept of business plane was just so outrageous for them to even understand what it was. They were terrified again. Now the business plane is still sitting in my office. We had people attempted to translate it. There were a lot of terminologies, those contents. What's a balance sheet? How do you explain the balance sheet to refugee ladies who couldn't even identify the phone? So that makes it even harder for us to communicate with them. Now there are other ways to go through these channels to work with them. Even though the plane didn't work, but something else worked. I will show you later.
Kathleen, before you move on, I think we have a question that was somewhat relevant to what you were just saying with the family room and the focus on education there. Ganesh just asked, do you provide an after-school program to reach the children born here to help them understand their background?
Is she asking the children born here from the immigrants or the children born here who are Vermonters?
I was taking that from the children born here from immigrants, but Ganesh, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Please clarify that if you would.
Yeah, which side of the children she's asking, because we have different kinds.
Okay, so
immigrants.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, in Burlington area that I know, we have two local elementary schools, kindergartens, K to 5, that level. We have special programs to work with the children who were born by the immigrants. And these children, of course, they don't have language issue. They don't have any cultural shock because they were born here in the state. And we do provide after-school program and further, like a cultural education opportunities for them to tell other people what their root was, when their parents came from here, how they came from here. The children do appreciate the opportunities for them to actually become the liaison between their parents who could not communicate very well and other people outside who don't quite understand immigrants. And that's usually the children are the best liaison and ambassadors to work with both sides of the population. Now, one thing, I need to explain this to you is when we were doing the research, trying to get the information, trying to find the translators, we do not have the permission to work with these children. So my students who are volunteers, they couldn't work with the children. But again, they are not supposed to give me any information. So a lot of barriers are still there. But the children who were born by immigrants were totally supported, not that separately from other children. They were all together. They are always in the regular school system with all other Caucasian children, Hispanic children, Asian children, everybody. That's what our school system is like. Any other questions?
Okay, I think you can go ahead.
Okay. Now this one, the business. Okay, thanks. This one, the Business Refugee Resource Guide, developed by the City of Burlington. This is a very unique opportunity that a city took the initiative to work with the immigrant population. The office is called a Community and Economic Development Office, CEDO. On the left-hand side, the upper corner, you saw it. This office took the lead to organize a lot of local businesses, organizations, or service providers to compile some information that we could use to assist refugee people to understand some of the local opportunities, some of the basic financial situation they have to handle, and some of the cultural exchange opportunities that the city will facilitate to connect local residents with the immigrant population. As you can see, these are the main functions that this office provides. The guide is online, and you can go to the Community Economic Development Office website to download every single detail, step-by-step information, how the city people work with different organizations, and these are great resources for everybody else to use wherever you are in the United States. Now we have quite a few migrant farm workers in Vermont. Vermont agriculture is really famous. Besides maple syrup, everybody knows. We have dairy, which is pretty much a leading industry here. And then we have apple orchards, who also hires a lot of migrant workers to work on their farms. I have encountered Jamaican farm labor in the apple orchards when I visited my apple orchard friend one time. I had seen a lot of different Hispanic farm laborers on dairy farms before. This is quite often, in Vermont area. This is a state conference just happened earlier this year in April 24th, and this is the flyer I downloaded from the website. As you can see, a lot of organizations were involved to organize this conference. Recently, we have some policy issues regarding the safety, the health, and education opportunities for migrant farm workers. You all probably remember back in, I think it was in the 1960s, there was a really famous documentary film called The Harvest of Shame. It was replayed on 60 Minutes, the TV show thingy, about two weeks ago. They talked about a lot of the previous problems we encountered in the history of U.S. agriculture development regarding migrant labor. We still have similar problems, if not worse. So a lot of problems still here. I think more and more people, more policymakers are paying attention to how we actually can assist these farm laborers to be productive and happy and treated well while they're here. Unfortunately, a lot of them might be illegal aliens. They came in with truckloads without appropriate paperwork, create a lot of problems. So it's been discussed over time for many years. Here, Middlebury College offered the opportunity to organize a few groups together. UVM Extension Migrant Education Program is involved, so you can write down or look at all these organizations. They all have their website. Feel free to download any information that you believe you could use in your area. These are the two most recent films and the information released. I actually saw this one, The Silenced Voice. It was a migrant worker who was killed in a farming accident last December in Vermont, and they followed his family, and while his body was returned to Mexico, and this filmmaker obviously followed the whole trace to look at how he came, where he came from, how his family dealt with the situation. It was a pretty interesting film for you to look at. I think it is available online. I'm not sure. I'm not very good at YouTube, but I assume you can get pretty much everything from YouTube. So look for it. They have a website there for you to look at. And then we have a really famous migrant farm worker, solid this project, and I only copy-pasted part of the website, but we have very many people in the organization involved in the immigrant and the farm worker rights to provide resources for educators, the farms who hire them to work with to understand, what would be the best way to protect these migrant labor while they were in a working condition. I'm going to pause for a minute if you have any questions.
My question would be for anybody also who wants to respond in the audience. Do you have similar programs that are matching community characteristics, both local and then of your immigrants coming in together within these programs? Like Jerry's typing. Okay. Thanks, Jerry.
Good. Just something new to share with you. I just told Heidi this morning. In our department, we actually offer a new class. I just noticed that it was on the registrar's website. We are offering a brand new course through the Community Development Applied Economics Department. The title is Migrant Hispanic Farm Workers in Vermont. And I believe this course will focus on the issues, the policy, the situations, or any assistance programs that we could provide for learners or service providers while they're working with the Hispanic farm workers here. This is a new, and it's pretty good. People are moving forward to pay more attention to the positive feedback about migrant workers' welfare overall.
Kathleen, just to be clear, is that a locally taught course or is it one that's online?
It's a locally taught on campus. I don't see online there. No, it's on-site.
But there may be access to the course curriculum or that kind of thing if anybody's interested.
Yes, here. It's taught, Tuesday, Thursday. I can get you the instructor information and the syllabus of the course so you can post it for everybody to use.
That would be great.
Yes, I will do that. Now, the job creation for immigrants, it's really a hot topic for every state, basically, right now. We heard Congress people talking about this all the time. For my personal experience, it's after we develop all these assistance programs or materials, it's actually more difficult to find the right people to connect with the refugees or the immigrant laborers with organizations. If we did not receive any information from the refugee resettlement program, I would have no idea where I should start with when the volunteer asked me to develop a business plan for the refugee women. But the business plan turned into something unique that women of the program who participate in family room actually were able to bring their stuff to farmers market, local farmers market, and a one world market here we have in Burlington City to sell their things. And this has been such a hit for local people, even tourists. We have very, very many tourists in the summertime coming through our local farmer market, and they were just amazed by the quality of sewing and the material that these ladies had presented just using the ancient sewing machine. They could accomplish a lot. And that brought in some really good income for them. It's a very good first step of establishment. I still hope one day they could read my business plan, but now I'm very happy at least they get some income to their pocket and they start to understand the financial transition at this point and why this is a unique opportunity for them to survive. Again, I will give Heidi more information about how specifically and the strategy set up for refugee women to participate in farmer market and one world market. and then she can post it for everybody. Coming back to our topic, we started a community characteristics, who we are, where we live in, and what opportunities to work with migrant population to realize their prosperity in certain communities. It's such a challenge for them to come so far, to come to a foreign country. They have to sacrifice a lot. The trade-off is just unbelievable. I don't think you and I can even comprehend how much they had been through to come to this country where they call the land of opportunity. But once they come here, there are more challenges and more barriers beyond their understanding. And it's really, really important for local people to have any opportunity to work with them and to appreciate where the immigrants coming from. Some key issues for future planning and policy implications. These are some common topics. They have been discussed since 1960s, the film The Harvest of Shame, and they're still here. The similar issues we're talking about today. The immigration population is getting higher and higher over time. We have the increasing trend of foreigners, whether it's legal or illegal aliens coming into this country. But a lot of times what we take for granted here, not everybody will understand why these things are important. That we just have to look at both sides for local residents or the second or third generation of immigrants, how they could become the supportive and the strength for the future of their own in this country. And then only through the generation connection here, we could help the new immigrants to see that they are here for really positive and a satisfactory experience. And we are not going to change everything overnight. That's not possible. But these things really take a long time. I started working with them in 2000, 2002, conducted this little research in 2004, 2005. It just started my involvement with a lot of immigration issues. I'm more involved right now, just working with them, sharing information with the caseworkers, the volunteers, and introduce my students to work with these organizations to become the liaison. Some of my students are second-generation immigrants, and they came from Somali area. They came from Nigeria area. They told me the stories. They told me what they would like to do for other immigrants, and I became the connection to help my students to work with other generations over time. These are the references I promised everybody, and you can just directly go to their information to check out all the statistics, the programs. I will give Heidi more information regarding the new development here we have in the department, all the curriculum situation. Then she will post them for you.
And I'll post them on our website, but again, if you want to share your email address, I'm happy to send it directly to you. So.
And that's the end of the presentation.
Great. Kathleen, thank you very much. I think this is really interesting in terms of a nice mix of both research, extension, and the different roles that you've played in working with the different communities to get a better understanding of both the needs and of both communities, the immigrant populations and the local populations, and ways to support those needs. So thank you very, very much for putting this all together today. And I want to thank everybody else for joining us and remind you that we'll be back next month and the second Friday of every month of the academic year with another highlights webinar. In January, we have plans in the works to feature some research looking at the challenges and opportunities of community and economic development in an aging region. So we're looking forward to that. That's January 14th from 10:30 to 11:30, and we'll be posting that information also on our website and over our list. So one other thing I just want to encourage you to visit our homepage often, as we're going to be kicking off a 3-month series of events that are going to lead up to our What Works 2 conference, which will be focusing on entrepreneurship in the Northeast, but we certainly welcome folks from throughout as well. And that's March 30th through April 1st in Philadelphia. And in addition to related webinars leading up to that, we'll be hosting blogs and discussion forums. So just want to give you a heads up to that. And then we certainly welcome folks from throughout the Northeast to present your work through the Highlights series. So if you want to have anything that you want to share, please drop me an email at hmm1@cornell.edu. So I'm right at 11:30, but I think we could take a couple of additional questions if anybody has one before we sign off. Any parting comments or questions? Okay. Thank you all again, and Kathleen, especially to you, and everybody have a